Welcome back to Local Decision 2020. I'm Rusty Ray, and we're joined now by the Republican candidate for State Senate out of District 37. It is Brad Sanford. Brad, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Rusty. Thanks for the invitation.
No stranger to North Metro TV. You've done some work here on the public access side.
I have.
And no stranger to Blaine. You've been here your entire life, or just about?
Mostly my entire life, absolutely.
And what is it about Blaine that's changed or not changed over all that time, do you think?
You know, I think it's the additional developments and how many additional people we have here. I mean, in the last census, we had like 50,000 or 51,000 people, and now we're up to 70 or 71,000. So, you know, that adds a lot of stress to the city, to the roads, those kinds of things. So all things you got to take care of and think about.
Kind of elbowing for a little more room at the table when it comes to state, certainly for transportation dollars. I know that that's always on the mind of people, especially in Blaine, especially using 65. And in Anoka County with Highway 10, it really ranks up there. Is it something that you have a strong feeling about or are hearing strong feelings about as you go about this campaign?
You know, I did my research beforehand and saw the DOT survey and what they had found out that out of the whole state, the 30 intersections that had too many car-to-car interactions, too many car-to-pedestrian interactions, of those 30, 10 are on Highway 65. Yeah. From 694 to just north of Main Street, and that speaks volumes about how many people we've had, you know, come to the area. And you know, it's not just Blaine; it's Coon Rapids and Spring Lake Park, and all of those. But yeah, it's really put a tax on everything.
Well, and it gets the attention in St. Paul. It's not just people headed up north on the weekends. It's people who do business in Blaine and along 65 and are going from Spring Lake Park up to Ham Lake. Now the state has made some corrections in places like Ham Lake and East Bethel with some different kind of those intersections, and now talking about design of intersections down in Blaine south of 109th and things like that, but also wanting public input. Is that encouraging to see that the state is saying, here's some ideas, but let's get some input from people who use the road every day?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was door knocking about a couple weeks ago, I ran into a guy that knows the person that died on the motorcycle at that J intersection up there. Okay. I can't tell you how many people just tell me that is the worst intersection they've ever seen or experienced in their life. And, you know, you're sitting there ready to go, and you've got someone turning this way, and they're blocking your view, and you've waited for minutes and minutes and minutes, and you get anxious. You know, it's not a situation that we want to put our drivers in. And that is one of the things that I think every candidate will tell you that's one of the things they want to work on when they get down there, because anything that impacts the constituents that much, losing lives, that's way beyond what we should be allowing. So I'd like to see what they want to put forward. Right. You know, I've seen the Texas one where you go off to the side and then come up and over. Blaine has a high water table, so you can't really go under, and you know, that kind of a thing. Or do you raise it a little bit, and those kinds of things. But there's so many things that we need to look to do.
I'm glad that you can make that much sense out of those drawings, because it's hard. It's looking at them, it's like this seems crazy. But again, it's all about options and about putting it out there for the public, I would imagine.
Absolutely, so getting their input, being a part of the conversation. Yep.
The conversations lately probably focus a lot on COVID and the state's response and how things have gone. What are you hearing from people, and what are you looking at in terms of the state's response and state government's response to the COVID crisis?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of on both sides. I'm glad that we're doing what we're doing to take care of it. I mean, nobody wants to hurt someone else, right? You don't want to give someone accidentally the COVID disease. So it's there's a lot of thought going into it. A lot of people that are really concerned about it, and I think we approached it right away. We don't know what it is. Let's figure it out. The only thing I would say is I wish there was a little bit more leadership, right? Let's say, here's what we have identified. Here's what we think will solve the issue and get the constituents' buy-in, right? And then this is the time frame that we're going to do this. Let's figure out all this data, figure out what's going on, and then get the results and see what we're doing is correct or not correct, right? And then adjust from there. But to just throw stuff in place, it seems like it's more reactionary instead of a plan.
Well, that seems like a slightly different approach than others in the Republican Party saying, let's get the churches and let's get everything back open and let's get people back to work in the interest of economic recovery and things like that. But it sounds like you're looking for a measured approach and saying, okay, if we know what we're dealing with and parameters in business, kind of like how schools have reopened, these are the numbers, this is what your county looks like, here's the percentage, here's the threshold. Is that about
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, but we knew when school was going to happen, right?
Right.
So we should have done that beforehand, right? So that we had a plan, we knew what we did, and the results were done, so we can say, let's fully go to school, or you know what, the numbers just aren't bearing out. Because we're all good Americans. None of us want to kill anyone else. Nobody wants to, at the cost of someone, open up a business. But at the same sense, we've really given our enemies across the seas the playbook for which to cripple America, right? And I choose to believe in American ingenuity, and let's get beyond this. Let's figure out what we can do to get beyond this and move forward for something that we would use in the future.
Saying that we can, or hoping that we can get beyond it here in a relatively short order, whatever that may look like, vaccine, some other kind of breakthrough. Okay, are there things that the state can then get back to focusing attention on that maybe before COVID you saw that the state was working on, or they got put aside by COVID? We've already talked a little bit about transportation. Anything like education, healthcare, anything else, public safety that you think the state can then turn its attention to?
Well, all those things we can take a look at, right? For me, I've always wondered why they want to solve 15 problems within a 2-year biennium, right? Mm-hmm. Let's prioritize and let's solve some problems in this biennium, then the next biennium, and then the next biennium, right? But I think healthcare is a big one, right? We need to take care of the people. And then the business is getting back into, I used to be a commercial lender at Wells Fargo, and so I absolutely have worked very closely with businesses, both in the suburban area and then, downtown, in that I know how this is affecting them, because there are a lot of industries that have short margins, right? Very, very small margins, and to take away that income from them, it takes away someone's livelihood. I mean, maybe they were planning on selling their business for their retirement, and now where are they at, right? And so there's a lot of things that we need to address and be aware of and take care of. Yeah, absolutely. One of my biggest issues, and I'm probably getting ahead of you, but
no, it's okay.
One of my biggest issues is teen mental health.
Okay.
I've been hearing it at the doors day after day after day. I mean, my oldest graduated 8 years ago, and in the last 8 years, she's lost over 80 of her co-graduates to death. Of those, 22 have been suicide, either through a drug overdose or just killing themselves or things like that. And that's just
astounding to hear that.
It breaks my heart
Sure.
to hear that the kids feel like that's their last resort is. And so when I was a bank manager, there was a lady that I worked with that was also a branch manager, and her brother committed suicide in 2017. And in response to that, she created the I Will Project. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to partner either with her nonprofit or some other mental illness nonprofit and see if we can get an answer to relieving some of the pain for these kids.
Well, we've done, I don't know how many of these interviews. You're the first one really to put a spotlight on that, and I find that very interesting and very poignant, especially in Blaine. I don't think it's a secret that in Blaine that this has been a very, very pressing issue in the past year and a half, especially at Blaine High School. They've had a number of these situations, and Blaine Police or several months ago, before COVID, I suppose, put out a video or two about we're resources, the police, law enforcement, let's work on this together. We can be a resource. Say something, let's get some help for folks. And so the cities can do that, and of course education may have some programs too, but you're talking about on a state level trying to address this, and partnering with nonprofits may be one way to do that, but getting resources where they need to go.
Yeah, I don't want government to be the only answer. I want the nonprofit area to be the part that leads it, right? Because I've never met a nonprofit that isn't passionate about what they do, right? Mm-hmm. So that they're going to take care of the issue and help you through it and help the kids through it. I mean, if the kids aren't our number one opportunity here to help out, I mean, that will be my number one thing that I do. I mean, 65's got to be taken care of. I'm a business owner. I can handle more than one thing at a time. So, but that will be a very pointed thing that I would like to take care of.
Well, but no matter what the state tries to tackle, one at a time or many at a time, funding obviously has to be there. Yes. And that's an uphill climb as well. Starting this year, 2020, with a huge projected surplus, finishing the year with a huge projected deficit, going into the budget process for the new biennium in a new session with a new legislature.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of challenges there. What do you look for? Do you look for opportunities there? Do you have any specific ideas for ways to re-examine how the state is generating that revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen many articles where there's fraud, in the government, and there's places that we can address where the expenses are going and redirect dollars. You're absolutely correct. It's going to be a challenge, right? There's a what, $6.6 billion deficit we're projecting, and that's not just something that can happen overnight, right? So there's going to be obstacles, but it's something that has to be done, and the effort has to be there.
Has COVID identified any possibilities with that? It's something as simple as folks can work more from home. Well, that may reduce the overhead costs for state agencies. Maybe office space isn't a premium anymore, or vehicle use or things like that, overhead costs. I mean, is COVID presenting any kind of opportunities for reimagining the way everybody, you mentioned nonprofits, they've got to find new ways to raise money and reach people. State agencies, I would imagine the same. Is that kind of a feeling as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID has made everybody look at how they do things and what they do over again, and how they want to go about their business in the future. And I think it's up to the business owners to decide how they want to do it, and the agencies would be up to the legislature to decide how they're going to do that. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things that we'll have to take a look at, and things that we can do. But I think a measured approach, common sense, putting our kids first and those kinds of things, I think is probably the best approach to doing this.
You ran this race 4 years ago, and now you're running it again against the same incumbent opponent. Why run again, and what has been different this time around?
I just have a passion for politics. I have a passion for leading in whatever I do, and so I thought we ran a great race 4 years ago. There's a lot in this district, and you just can't door knock every door, right? So I feel like we left something on the table, and I think the best approach to government is a conservative approach, right? So that, again, when I said to you, we don't have to do everything in a 2-year period, I think being conservative, taking high priorities and figuring them out in that 2-year approach is best for our communities.
And you feel like the voters in your district identify with that?
Yes, absolutely. The numbers show that they do, yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Brad, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you coming by.
Thanks, Rusty.